Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be talking about the MEDUSA RDTA from GEEKVAPE. And before we get started, I just want to take a quick second and say thank you to the guys that brought it to my attention that someone had taken one of my videos and taken off the logos at the beginning and the end and uploaded it as their own work. I spent a lot of time and money on this channel, so obviously it kind of pisses me off when someone takes something that I made and calls it their own. So I really honestly appreciate you guys letting me know that that was out there so that I could do something about it. So anyway, this is the new RDTA from GEEKVAPE. They're calling it a Simplified RDTA, and we'll talk about that a little bit once we start looking at it in detail. But the outside kind of has this engraved pattern on it. Really pretty tank. I really like the way it looks a lot. And kind of a really short Ultim top there. It's almost just an adapter rather than a drip tip. And you can put any tip that you want in there. And we'll take it apart and have a look at the inside. So this is what they're calling a Simplified RDTA. It's basically just a floating velocity style deck with a really large pit down in there. And that's it. Direct air through these two little channels on each side. And I'm just going to say this right now. Whether or not that's an RDTA is sort of really up for debate. The whole thing with companies calling their tanks RDTAs is just sort of turned into this whole confusing mess. So if I was just getting into vaping, I wouldn't be able to figure out what the hell that meant, because there's so many different companies calling their stuff RDTAs when they're totally different than other things being called RDTAs. So if a company calls their aromomizer an RDTA, and then this company calls their MEDUSA and RDTA, they're totally different. They don't function the same at all. So which one of them is right is kind of up for debate. But to me, it makes the most sense to call the newer Genesis style stuff RDTA, because you have the option, there's a tank at the bottom of it, and you have the option of just taking the cap off and dripping on it, which is sort of what the name means. In the case of this, you can take the cap off and drip on it. But whether or not this is a tank, to me this looks like a dripper with a really deep juice well, and that's it. So I'm not sure that I would call this an RDTA. And to me it performs like a dripper with a deep juice well, but we'll get into that later. So really high quality grub screws in there, easy build deck, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty much standard as far as GEEKVAPE stuff goes. It's made well, and no complaints about that. I just have a normal alien build in there, and you kind of have to be careful with clearance on this one. So kind of my initial instinct is to pull these coils out far to try and be close to the airflow, but you don't really have that option on here, because there's this rim around the bottom. So the coils have to be in far enough to not hit that rim when it's going down. And it kind of goes in sideways like this. It can't go on like that. It goes in like that. And it's a little bit hard to get down on there. And it's hard to turn. And then you turn it to where it's hitting the coils with the airflow, and now it's locked into place. And once you have wicks in there, that bottom section is completely closed off. So to refill it, this has to come off. And it's not the easiest thing to take on and off. You have to have the top all the way off so that you can see when it's lined up with the airflow and all that kind of stuff. And have them pulled back quite a ways, like I was saying, because of that clearance. So let's go on and get through the dry fire, and we'll talk about wicking. Okay, I think we're good. Pretty easy process there. So I'm going to be using Kendo Gold on this. And I'm going to wick it. I've tried a couple different methods of wicking this, and it really didn't make a huge difference to me as far as performance. So I'm just going to wick it how I did the very first time. Okay, so I'm going to cut it right about halfway in there, halfway of the height of this black section. And you'll want to brush this out to get the cotton nice and loose, not packed in at all. And then we just tuck it down there. You want to try and get all the cotton inside those little slots as best you can because there's metal in the way once you put that top on. And to me, it feels like the cotton is just barely touching the bottom of the deck. And I don't think that you necessarily have to have it that long. You're probably giving up a little bit of the juice capacity to have it that long. But for me, it works, so that's the way I'm going to do it. And now we just saturate it. And now to fill it up, I'm just simply going to put it along the side there. Anywhere, it doesn't really matter. And if you have the cotton all the way down to the bottom of the deck, you're going to want to put it in different areas to make sure that each area is kind of filled, because sometimes the cotton can kind of block the juice flow. So as you can see, it does hold a fair amount of juice, but it also blows through that juice extremely quickly. So I'm just going to do one final check and make sure that the upper part of the cotton is nice and saturated. And I've noticed that if you even just slightly overfill it, putting this on can become a little bit messy. If it's filled up all the way, it tends to overflow a little bit as you put this on, because this section right here is going down into it. So it might have a little bit, yep. And then you just want to line it up with your coils. And then you have your top section, and that's kind of doubles as the airflow control. And for me, I've used this consistently with the air all the way open. And we're ready to give this a try. I'm going to be using it at about 80 watts. So the airflow amount is good. It's pretty wide open. I've had staples in here before, and it's enough air to take care of that. So pretty much if you can fit staples in something and the airflow can handle it, then it's as wide open as you need it to be. This short drip tip kind of gets on my nerves just a little bit because my lips are hitting the top there. It's just too short. I wish it was a little bit taller. Like I said, it's really more of an adapter type thing than it is a drip tip. And there's no real way to know that this tank section is empty. You can kind of pull the top off and look at the cotton and see if it looks like it's going dry. but you can't actually see the amount in the tank, or the well area, I should say, unless you take this section off, which is kind of a pain to do repeatedly. As for the flavor, it's about average to me. It's like average dripper flavor. So if you're comparing it to a sub-ohm tank, it's good. Comparing it to other drippers, it's just kind of somewhere in the middle of the pack there. So good flavor, but not by any means exceptional. The other stuff that I've done on the channel lately, the higher performance RTAs, just downright beat it on flavor. Good clouds and all of that kind of stuff, but I don't know, I was expecting more flavor from this. I don't know. I mean, it's all right. That's kind of where I'm at with GeekVape stuff. Like, I know GeekVape is hugely popular, and it's not bad by any means, but it's just sort of middle of the road. There's better stuff out there, even for that price point. GeekVape stuff is always pretty cheap, so even at that price, there's better stuff to be found if you're looking for flavor. As far as clouds go, plenty of clouds, no complaints there. I guess my biggest problem with this tank comes in calling it an RDTA, even calling it a simplified RDTA, whatever that means. It's essentially a dripper with a really deep juice well. So, I mean, if you kind of go into it with that expectation, the performance of a dripper with a deep juice well, then that's what you're going to get. It's not really going to disappoint you. But to go into it to expect the kind of RDTA performance of something like the Aromomizer, like I was talking about, the different kind of RDTA, to me, they're very different. So if I was expecting that from this, I would be a little disappointed. But once I looked at it, I knew it wasn't really going to be like that. And really not even like some of the other Genesis-style RDTAs. To me, the closest relative of this tank would be the Pharaoh dripper tank from Digiflavor. They're very similar in the way that they feel, and that sort of has the same thing where you can't really tell how much juice is in there too easily, although that tank is a little bit easier. But to me, that's the closest parallel that I have. Although that was bottom air and kind of a totally different build deck, but just to me they're more similar than other RDTAs out there are to this. So that'll bring us to the end of this video about the Medusa RDTA from GeekVape. If you like this video on our channel, give us a like and subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments or send me an email. Thanks.